What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob Soboroff. Good evening from New York, in for Chris Hayes. Let's take a quick trip back in time, if I might. It was on May 1st, 2003, that George W. Bush declared mission accomplished in Iraq on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. How could we forget? That war sadly lasted for the better part of a decade. Tomorrow marks 2 months since what some have called Donald Trump's mission accomplished moment, when he posted that his war with Iran was over and he told all of the world he would be traveling to the Palace of Versailles in France with great pomp and circumstance to sign the formal agreement. This is what he said back then. The deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorize immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow. 2 months after Trump's mission accomplished moment, America is still at war in the Middle East. Donald Trump is secretly switching planes to avoid alleged Iranian threats. And Iran continues to block the Strait of Hormuz and 20% of the world's oil supply. In fact, shipping traffic through the strait this week reached its lowest level in 3 months, about 90% lower than it was before the United States and Israel attacked Iran. That's driven the national average gas price to, you already know this, $4.07 a gallon today. That is the highest it has ever been this late in the year. The war is also exhausting the arsenal of the world's most powerful military, as the United States and their allies have burned through most of their long-range strike missiles and the defensive interceptors as well. And today, the Washington Post reports that the United States has lost 45 Reaper drones, 25% of its entire arsenal, in a war with a nation, according to Donald Trump, whose small air force was destroyed multiple times in the past 6 months. That's odd. It's not just shortages of oil and weaponry. Trump's war is also depleting morale among some of the service members who have been on station waging his war since it started. We're going to have more on that in just a minute, and you're not going to want to miss it. What is Donald Trump doing about all of this? What is he focusing on? What do you think he is focusing on? Today in Washington, Trump's handpicked board voted to put his name back on the front of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. It's been one of his obsessions to remake the Kennedy Center in his image. He wants to do $250 million of renovations on the center, including adding marble floors. And yes, we have been here before. Just last year, Trump's board had his name installed on the center, and they looked ready to break ground on the renovations, but then a judge said no. So they eventually removed his name from the wall behind a tarp, safe from public view. I went to see the mess myself after the judge ordered the administration take his name down. Did he leave that tarp up because he was embarrassed about the removal? You decide. But now it might be back. The name, at least. The board voted to install an inscription saying, "Restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump." And they voted to close the main hall down for those renovations. Both moves violate the judge's order, but Trump wants this so badly. This week, PolitiFact reviewed all of Donald Trump's public events and speeches so far this year, and they found that he had devoted nearly 45,000 words just to his vanity construction projects in Washington. That is almost as many words as there are in Great Gatsby. More, I think, than the latest book that I wrote about the costliest wildfire event in American history. In fact, the review found that Trump mentioned his projects more than any other single topic except one. Guess which? The Iran war. And it was pretty close, as Larry might say. But PolitiFact notes the Iran war led the list when he was responding to reporters' questions about the war. In other words, when the subject chosen was the subject that was chosen for him. But they added, Trump returned to the construction projects repeatedly when he was the one choosing what to talk about. He always comes back to the ballroom, or the pool, or the new marble floors in the Kennedy Center beneath his name in gold. That is what he is focused on, not the war, and certainly not the more than 5,000 sailors and Marines aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Get this. The same aircraft carrier from George W. Bush's photo op left its home port last November, just after Donald Trump was just after he was elected. It left San Diego last November and it headed for the Persian Gulf. And by April, deep into Trump's war, the USS Lincoln went viral as friends and families were sharing photos that sailors had taken, look at this, of the meager portions those sailors got from the ship's mess halls. They blamed the logistics of such a long deployment. Pete Hegseth called those reports, these pictures, fake news. That was back when the Lincoln crew thought their deployment would end in May. It did not end in May. They remained at sea today. They're still there 265 days after they left home. Last week, MS Now's Priya Sridhar interviewed more than a dozen family members who say they're extremely concerned with the morale and the safety and the conditions on the ship. They cited things like moldy showers and food shortages, sailors running out of toothpaste, deodorant and soap too, as well as water contamination and mail disruptions. It left care packages undelivered. A lot of people warned that their sailors' mental health was at risk.
You know, fresh food is a problem, especially considering the conditions right now. There's a logistical problem with getting fresh food out there just based on where they are, right?
All he's really told me is there's a time where he was only eating half a cup of rice and 2 tortillas.
They want our support. And part of that support means we have to have the tools to do our job. That means the fuel. That means the food, right? That means the food. That means the toothpaste and the deodorant. That means all of it, right?
I don't think it's the ship is the issue. I think it's our president. It's our government.
Did you hear that? I don't think it's the ship that's the issue. I think it's our president. It's our government. This week, Military Times discovered multiple incidents in which sailors on the Lincoln attempted to jump overboard. That's 60 feet down. Pete Hegseth stopped short of calling that fake news today, but he seemed to deny that there were any problems on the Lincoln.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody.
We do know that at least one Lincoln sailor did jump off the ship, but miraculously, he was rescued after an hour in the open ocean. We know that because his wife today spoke exclusively with Sridhar of MS Now and shared texts from her husband earlier in the Lincoln's deployment, including one text that said, quote, "The boat is finally getting to me." Now members of Congress from both parties are demanding answers from the Pentagon about the Lincoln's cursed deployment. And while there is certainly no mission accomplished victory banner hanging off the control tower of the Lincoln anymore, Donald Trump's pointless war in the Middle East drags on. And this time, the USS Abraham Lincoln, the sailors, and the service members are calling for help. Help to understand what their mission actually is. Priya Sridhar is our MS Now Pentagon correspondent who has done truly incredible reporting on the hardships facing the crew of the Lincoln. Priya, thank you so much for being here and for your reporting.
Thanks so much, Jacob.
Let me ask you, we had seen reports that sailors attempted to jump overboard from the Lincoln and were stopped too, but you have this reporting that one sailor actually did end up in the water. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's right, Jacob. And I actually just spoke to his 19-year-old wife who said that she saw him for the first time since he went on this deployment. And by the way, he finally got to meet his 5-month-old daughter who was born back in February while he was on the ship. But now he is actually in the Balboa Naval Medical Center in San Diego because he got medically evacuated off of that ship after he tried to jump and take his life last Monday. And his wife shared with me that she was growing increasingly concerned over some of the text messages that he had been sending to her since about halfway through the ship's deployment. He was talking to her about being exhausted and hopeless. And he worked on the aircraft carrier's flight deck as a mechanic on the helicopter squadron. And he shared with her that his prescription contact lenses had expired and that he was worried that he was having issues seeing and that could potentially lead to accidents. And he expressed those concerns and also some of the concerns over his mental health with his chain of command and with the ship's medical team, according to her. And she says that they basically just brushed it off. Now, what's even more concerning about all of this is she says that she learned about her husband's suicide attempt from one of his squadron mates. And when she discovered that it was actually him who had jumped off the ship, she attempted to reach out to the Navy several times and didn't receive any sort of response until 5 days later. So I think all of this, Jacob, just really shines a spotlight on the mental toll that this ongoing war in Iran is taking on our service members.
Well, it sounds like there was some kind of response from the Pentagon, you said, but I wonder what more the Navy or the Pentagon are doing about any of this. What does your reporting tell you?
Yeah, that's right, Jacob. So last week, I also exclusively reported on these two back-to-back town halls that Navy leaders held. One was in person with the acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Cao, and about 200 family members in San Diego. And actually, in that town hall, they confronted the Secretary of the Navy about this report of a sailor who went overboard. And another Navy leader who was there basically said that the situation was under investigation and it was unclear at that point if this sailor had actually intentionally jumped off the ship or if he had fallen off. But this Navy leader said that that sailor was fine, and that was met with a lot of anger from the families. Now, Navy leaders inside of the Pentagon have told me that they have not seen an uptick in any sort of suicide ideations on this deployment, but they said that they can't obviously specifically comment on any service members' medical records for privacy reasons.
The conditions sound horrific, and I did see that an anonymous active duty sailor wrote an opinion piece for the Military Times, and it was called "If Long Deployments Are the Future, Endurance Can't Be the Navy's Only Plan." It's got to be unusual for service members to write opinion pieces like this. What does it tell you about the military morale 6 months into this war with the 30 seconds that we have left?
Yeah, Jacob, I think that the service members are desperate, and I think that's why these family members are trying to sound the alarm here. You know, what's going on with the Navy right now is unprecedented. The Lincoln hit a modern-day record for the most continuous days at sea. They didn't have a port call for 208 days. That's completely unheard of. The Ford, that was also deployed in Operation Epic Fury, hit a record for the longest deployment in modern Navy history. So what's going on right now with the Navy is something that historically has never happened, and that is what's prompting these service members and these family members to speak out, Jacob.
Priya Sridhar, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.